In this movie, we take a look at what happens with our position design when an end user resizes the font. Now there are a couple things we want to do to stage our sandbox so that we can see what happens with our demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my HTML here. And I'm going to add in and modify our CSS. So first of all here, I actually want to change the position of our images so that they are 400 and 450. I need to specify a top value. I'll set that to -70 px. I'll do that for both of them. Of course, our images are not really our main concern right here. I just need to get them out of the way. There they go. And then I need to set up my columns. So the top of my left-hand column, go ahead and set that to 200 so that we still have some breathing space, but our design looks a little normal. And I will also add on borders around my columns so we can see what's going on here. So go ahead and save that and refresh. So there we go, we can see the borders on the columns. Now I'm going to go ahead here and go to the View menu and go to the Zoom, and we have this Zoom text only. Now, I already have that checked, but this is going to make it so that whenever I zoom in using this command or using the keyboard shortcut for that, it's going to zoom the text. Now notice what happens when I zoom the text here. For items that have a fixed height, our boxes are not resizing. So if they don't have a fixed height, whenever I zoom in, they end up expanding. And in fact, at this point, our design is completely useless because our boxes have expanded so far that they have overlapped our absolute positioned elements. So while in theory, our positioning will allow us to have a lot of design control, the practicality of that is not all that real. So we do have some very, very serious issues when it comes to using our absolute positioning for design purposes. However, if we use it in small chunks and not for an entire design such as this, it is going to be okay because we're not overusing it. Now, typically it will be safe to use your position absolute whenever you're working with things that the end user can't really control how things will reflow, such as maybe on an image gallery or other static elements. Now, if you are absolutely in love with the idea of having this fixed layout, then you really need to make sure that you're taking as much control as you possibly can. And to that end, that's where our overflow property comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead here and jump back into my CSS, and I'm going to add on to my left column here an overflow property. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my CSS here and add in an overflow property for the left column. And because I don't need scroll bars all the time, I'll just set it to overflow. So I'll go ahead and save that and then refresh, and whenever I zoom in, whenever the content gets too big for the box, it adds in that scroll bar. So if you are in love with the idea of having positioning such as this, make sure you are setting that height as well as setting up that overflow. Now for elements that don't have a height, well, we kind of need to set them if we want to really use our absolute positioning here. So I need to set a height on my header. I'll go ahead and set it to 175 pixels. And again, set my overflow to auto. I refresh. and control that, I end up seeing I get scroll bars. And of course, this is kind of a problem because our content is going to be hidden, but it's maintaining our design. So in the end, it's going to be a call that you're going to have to make if the sacrifice of being able to see all of our content is worth having this design exactly where we want it on the screen. Now, popular opinion kind of holds that absolute positioning layouts are less than perfect and should probably be avoided in most cases, because even though we are maintaining the layout that we want, our content is just kind of bunched up into these small little boxes, which actually create additional reading problems, because if you have to scroll everything, well, what's the purpose? So I have to scroll that just to see that, but it wasn't really important that I be able to read this. However, my navigation bar should not have it, so I have to scroll all the way down to see what's on the website, only to have to scroll back up to find the content that I want. So one of the biggest problems with our absolute positioned layouts is that they are going to require the use of our overflows to maintain the integrity of our design at the expense of usability. Now, with all of that in mind, you should have a pretty good idea as to how to use your different positioning options for your layouts. And it is worth bearing in mind to realize that you can use these different layout types in combination. So you can use elements of positioning inside of a flexible design. And that's actually what we're going to be doing with our layout concerning positioning. So this concludes our look at positioning and our overflow property.